Hi everyone, this is Morgan, and in this video I'm going to walk you through the process of turning an image into a pattern that you can tile within Photoshop. So all I have open right now is the image that I would like to eventually have tiled. So this is one of my own pieces. And the main important thing at this stage is that you are picking an image that is either your drawing or painting that you've scanned, your photograph, or even you could directly scan objects within the scanner and upload those images. So in some way you should be starting with a piece of work that is uniquely your own. So however you get to this point, get there. And then before we do anything here, I actually want to create the canvas that we're going to be dumping this pattern onto. So I am in Photoshop now. I have the image that I'm going to pattern open, but I'm going to also create a new document. So I'm going to File, New. And what I'm going to want to create here is an 8 by 10 inch image. So I'll leave the orientation at portrait. You could switch over to landscape if you'd like. The resolution should be 240 or 300. And then I find it easiest visually to leave the background contents as white, but it kind of doesn't matter for this. So the only thing I'll change here is that I want to save this as pattern dash my last name. So Barry for me. So you'll name this pattern dash your last name. And I will click create. So now this is going to be our canvas that we, again, put this pattern onto eventually. So I'm going to navigate back to my actual image, so just in the tabs here. And I want to select whatever area I'd like to turn into a pattern. So for me, this is kind of interesting. I could go with my whole image, or I could pick a specific chunk and only pattern that part. So if you end up liking the idea of just patterning your whole image, you have a really easy keyboard shortcut, and that is Command A as an apple if you're a Mac user. So again, I'm on a Mac. If I hit Command A, I'm selecting my whole image, and you can tell because I have these marching ants going around the whole boundary. So if you like the idea of doing your whole image, you're done at this point. I don't, so I'm gonna hit Command D as in dog to deselect, and I'll navigate over to my toolbar. So what I'm looking for here is the rectangular marquee tool, which should be near the top of your toolbar. It could be hidden behind other tools, but this is what it looks like. And it could be hidden behind another, either the elliptical marquee tool or one of these single row or column marquee tools. So once I've got that selected, I'm just gonna pick a chunk of this image I like to pattern, and we can just see how it works out. I haven't actually done this yet, but I'm going to just hit this little area. And I might go this big. So I've just actually noticed an issue that I'm gonna encounter, and this is actually great because it's important to think of. So I'm gonna hit Command D to deselect. So this might seem like a jump back, but it'll actually come in super handy. I'm gonna go up to my image drop down and navigate to image size. So the reason this started to concern me a little bit is I know that I made this file to be printed larger. This is a 24 by 30 inch piece. So if I try to tile this kind of bigger image onto an 8 by 10, it's not gonna work. I need to create a pattern tile that's kind of smaller. So what I'm gonna first do is just crop down to the area that I actually wanna tile. So this will be fun to pick out. For my particular image, I'm not worried about symmetry. I'm not worried about things lining up. I'm just kind of seeing what could be fun. So I might make a nice little square. So since I'm in the crop tool, which I should have introduced more clearly, but this is the crop tool, I'm going to go up to ratio and click 1:1 square. So now I'm going to have a perfect square as my defined pattern area. So I'll just select this little chunk. And then if I'm happy with it, I can readjust it from the sides here. I can move it around. I can change it. I can make just a billion foxes. But I'll probably select one of the flower areas and maybe scooch her over. And then hit the check to accept. So now I have a much smaller image. I'm going to actually press Command 0 to bring it up. So I want to make sure that this is small enough that on my 8 by 10 inch image, it's going to be able to be repeated as a tile multiple times. So I'm going to go up to image size, and it's still about 7.3 inches square. So it won't really be able to tile onto that actual 8 by 10 file that we prepped, the pattern berry file for me. So I'm going to make it pretty darn small. I'm going to say each of these little squares should be maybe 1 inch and say, okay. So pretty darn small. So now I'm going to do what I did initially, do Command A to select the area that I want to define as a pattern. And I'll go up to Edit. And then once I'm in the Edit dropdown, I'll scroll down to Define Pattern, which is sort of in the middle bottom. So I'll name this Flowers. And you will be able to see the thumbnail as well. So that will help you remember the pattern. And I'll click OK. So if I go up here and navigate over to my Pattern Berry tab, I still have the crop tool active, so I'm going to click away from that. But I want to drop that pattern I just created into this. So to do that, I'm going to navigate down to the Paint Bucket tool. And I'm purposefully clicking away from it to give you a better idea of what you will see when you enter Photoshop, or what you will most likely see. So the gradient tool is the most common tool. It's what will be active in the toolbar. But if you click and hold the gradient tool, the Paint Bucket tool should be hiding right behind it. And again, I've already done this walkthrough just for myself. But what normally comes up with the Paint Bucket tool is that you are just going to paint whatever the foreground color is. So my foreground color currently is this mid-gray. So if I click in here, it should just paint the mid-gray, which I don't want. So I'm going to press Command Z as in zebra to undo. And then I'll go back up here and say, I actually want a pattern. And I want this pattern that I just defined. And I'm going to dump it here. So you can see my pattern repeated over and over and over again here. So that is the whole, tiling part of our process. Now we're just going to talk about how you turn this in. So we've already talked about how image size is important. What I want to make sure you do is save this as a JPEG. That's how this is going to be small enough so that you can upload it quickly to Canvas. You won't have a huge issue. If you have been following along really closely and you've saved it as pattern-your last name, you should be good to go, which is great. So if I go File, Save As, my name is coming up correctly. I'm going to just be safe and save it to the desktop so I can find it. And instead of doing a PDF, I'm going to switch over to JPEG. And then I'll hit Save. And then in the options, I always like to leave the JPEG quality high, so I'll click OK. So if I navigate from here to my Finder window, so outside of Photoshop, and I go to the desktop, I should see my Pattern Berry file is here, and it's still relatively small. It's 6.9 megabytes. So that won't be, it's not teeny tiny, but it's going to upload pretty quickly. So since it seems like my battery is about to die, I'm going to end the video here. But as always, if you have questions about this assignment, please feel free to reach out to me at barrym@uwstout.edu.